Hello and welcome back to Normal Island. For some of you, this will be the first time seeing me today. Others, you would have just watched me co-host over on Navara Media. So welcome to everyone. I am, of course, Curtis Daly, your host for tonight. You know what, it's been a while since I've been here, so I'm really excited for tonight's show. I'm super excited because joining me is the excellent Frank Addington Stringer. You may know him as North East Derbyshire Green Councillor or his viral debate videos on TikTok, or both. Frank, how are you doing this evening?
I'm really well, thank you, Curtis. Really good to be here.
Thank you so much. If Cog, if you could maybe like sort out my splits, I think I'm off camera a little bit if that can be fixed. But yes, no, I'm very excited for tonight, and this is what we've got in store for you. Labour cabinet revolts over cuts. Israel spokesman, has a meltdown on TV. He calls Christian Guru a Hamas advocate, which is wild. And Palestinian activists have been charged for holding MP to account. As always, remember to like the stream. And if you're not a subscriber, then please hit that button. Help us reach our goal of 40,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We'll, of course, be getting to your comments at the end. So please make sure you are busy in the chat as always. Now, on to our first story. Rachel Reeves faces a cabinet revolt on their spending review, with members afraid of deep cuts and some even calling for a wealth tax. Rachel Reeves is facing a cabinet revolt over her spending review, and amid fears departmental cuts will lead to key manifesto spending promises being ditched. In what is being described as a proxy war, the Chancellor is facing a push to consider taxes on the wealthy instead of cuts before she outlines her government spending plans next week. The row follows reports that major departments, including Yvette Cooper's Home Office and Angela Rayner's Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, have still not settled on an agreement for the spending review due to be unveiled on Wednesday, the 11th of June. Now, what I find quite ironic is those like Yvette Cooper. I mean, she's championed austerity in the past, but they don't want it in their own department. You know, austerity for everyone else. But, you know, if it makes me look bad, then no. Frank, I mean, are you surprised there are internal revolts? I mean, they all stood behind the Labour manifesto, which didn't commit to big spending increases. Some even described it as an austerity manifesto. So why are they fighting over this now when it's, you know, they got what they wanted?
I think the problem is that they didn't know what they wanted, and they've ended up in this position where they didn't commit to anything during that general election campaign. And they were so vague that they've left themselves open to this problem, I think, where Rachel Reeves has her hands tied behind her back now, where introducing a wealth tax fundamentally would just be a total embarrassment for her and the party as a whole. And they are really unsure as a party what their direction is, what their commitments are. They're a party that have a cynical hold on power, I think. And really, they need to figure out what it is they want to do, because they've got 4 years to do it. And I'm pretty sure they won't be there any longer than that.
I mean, yeah, I think the polls indicate that they're not going to probably get a second term. But, you know, it's been almost a year. But nearly a year of this Labour government. I mean, but during the election, they claimed they were the adults in the room. But it seems like they've been anything but. I mean, their polling is abysmal. Do you think Labour can do anything to improve their own situation? Or have they lost trust? I mean, let's say they scrap the two-child benefit cap. They reinstate the winter fuel payments in full, by the way. I know they said they were going to do that, but it's not a real U-turn because it still means tested. Do you think that this can work, or is it just too late?
It's too late. I mean, I previously was a Labour Party member, and I left the party because, you know, of the state of it. I think that there are MPs within Labour who still believe that in the vision of what Labour is in their heart, and they all think it's something different to them. And there isn't this unified picture of what Labour is at the moment, particularly under Keir Starmer, and what Starmerism really truly means. And so I think that this loss of identity would only really be reinstated, it would be reinforced by a U-turn. introducing these things would just show that we in the Green Party, we on the left, have been advocating for these things all along, and we've been right. And it would undermine Keir Starmer so much that I don't know how he could continue. I don't know how the party could continue being in government with their mandate, because they have no mandate. So they are just absolutely I stuck in a circle here, and whatever they do, they're either going to feed into us or to reform, and they're going to prove that they stand for nothing. They have no principles, they have no values. And that's what we need. We're all looking at the moment for stability after 14 years of Conservative chaos, after austerity, after our communities absolutely being hollowed out. We want somebody to stand up and lead the way. Labour are not doing that. They, like you've just said, Curtis, so expertly, they are austerity 2.0. They are continuing this. They stood on this manifesto, and now they don't want it, because all they really wanted was to be in power. All they really wanted to do was to beat the Conservatives. And they came in, as they always have done, expecting that, the Conservatives are down in the polls, we'll do the hard stuff first, and then we'll be all right, we'll get a second term, the Conservatives won't recover. And they didn't anticipate what reform would do. They didn't anticipate that people would be so annoyed, so frustrated with this, that we can't stand any more cuts to our services, that people would be so desperate as to look for an alternative. And people are, coming to the Liberal Democrats and the Greens in huge numbers from the Labour Party. And that will only continue, I think.
I mean, if you could characterise Keir Starmer, then, I think when I asked you the initial question about why is there sort of this revolt, they don't know what they want. I guess that's kind of the case. What about Keir Starmer specifically? Do you think that's more of that? I mean, we all know about Morgan McSweeney, right? It seems to be that Keir Starmer does whatever Morgan McSweeney says.
I think that's absolutely right. And Keir Starmer was right there behind Jeremy Corbyn, right? And then has promised to change the Labour Party into something different. What does Keir Starmer really stand for? I don't think any of us have a clear understanding of what that is. I certainly don't. So in terms of characterising him and his politics, I think that he just wants to be in power for the sake of power's sake. He just wants the Labour Party to be the party of government, and that's it. But that isn't enough for the working people. We don't care about that. It doesn't actually matter to most people who is or isn't in government. It's about what's happening in their community. And right now, we're being let down.
Yeah, and I think as well with Rachel Reeves, I mean, she's got her fiscal rules. And obviously on today, she announced that there was going to be a big spending package for transport. Still wondering where she's got that money from. And I'm not doing this in a neoliberal way, of course. I'm not saying that you need to tax and spend and, this is a household budget. We obviously reject that. But obviously for her, she said we have strict fiscal rules. We can't do X, Y, and Z, which is obviously, scrap the 2-child benefit cap. Get rid of these horrible cuts to disability benefits. Yet she's unveiled these sort of a big £15 billion investment on transport. What is going on with Rachel Reeves then? I mean, does she know what she's doing? She's announced these strict fiscal rules, but now she's doing something else. I hope you can make sense of it for me.
I wish I could. I really, really wish I could. For me, there's an obvious answer, right? Which is to tax the wealthiest in society, to tax their wealth, not the income of working people. That's where we should be finding the money to invest in our communities. That's how they should be done. I read that Rachel Reeves was calling this an economic reality. It's her own reality, one that she's created. These are her fiscal rules. These aren't a reality for the rest of us. These don't exist. The Labour Party have decided that they're going to box themselves in, and this is why they're stuck in this situation. Now, I'm sure that Rachel Reeves probably does want to achieve certain things in government, does want the Labour Party to achieve X, Y, Z. What they are, I don't know. I don't think she's allowed to even express them because she's just tied herself up in too many knots.
I mean, in my personal opinion, I'm going to do that. I think this is the kind of politics she's always supported. She'll say it's because of the last 14 years of Conservative rules, because the economy is in ruins. But back in 2013, she was calling for stricter benefit cuts. Actually, she said we should go further on benefit cuts than the Tories. I think this is who she is as a person, and I think that's what the Labour Party is filled with. You're more than welcome to jump in and disagree, but I think you're probably going to agree with me in this one, though.
I think actually what I think that their guiding principle is power. I really do. I think that they just want to be in office so that Conservatives are. And this is, for me, it comes down to the fundamental thing that a two-party system is just so broken, because you end up with two people that just want to argue and beat each other up, and I'm in power so you're not. And that for them is success. It's just about their team winning. And it's not actually about delivering for people. It doesn't feel like that to me. And so for them, I really do genuinely believe that they think that being in power is good enough, that them having the reins and the Conservatives being beaten is what we all want, and then that's just enough for us. But it isn't, and I'm so pleased that that two-party system is crumbled, it's broken, it's completely changed, and we live in a five-party system now, and there are options, and they don't know how to deal with that, and that's why they're stuck. Because there are Labour MPs that are completely up in arms about what's happening, and rightly so. I would challenge them to ask if they really think that they can win the soul of the Labour Party back. But we're here offering a solution, right? We've got the answers. We've stood by our principles time and time again. They are, we vote one member, one vote on our policy. It's not going to change at the whim of a leader like Starmer coming in, someone who wants to play the centre ground. It can't change. We have these principles. We have these policies. And so why would people want to vote for a Labour Party that's just the best we've got, the lesser of two evils? They now have a real credible option, which is us in the Green Party, and they are voting for us. They are moving away from the Labour Party, and I don't think whichever way they do U-turn, they will be able to get those voters back. Okay, they're on the same trajectory as the Conservatives, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely, I think it's the Conservatives and the red tie, the capital B team, should we say? But I think we're going to leave it there. We're going to move on to our second story of the evening. Israel spokesman David Mencer had a meltdown on Channel 4 with Krishnan Guru-Murthy. This interview was conducted after the IDF fired upon civilians trying to collect food and aid.
David Mencer, the IDF has admitted shots were fired this morning. Why is Israel firing at people who you have told it is safe to go and collect aid when they are desperate for food?
First things first, Krishnan, we're trying to divorce Hamas from the aid distribution system because Hamas were taking the aid, profiting the aid. They were charging poor, hungry Gazans to get this food. We're divorcing the two subjects of Hamas and aid distribution to allow hungry Gazans to get the food directly, to be able to feed their families in an orderly way. Now, to the event this morning, Tuesday, the IDF have said that as crowds move along the designated routes towards a humanitarian aid distribution point in northern Gaza, Israeli soldiers identified several of those people. They left the approved access route. The incident occurred approximately 500 meters, half a kilometer from the distribution site. And after issuing warnings, audio, verbal warnings, warning shots were fired in the air. And unfortunately, some of these suspects continued advancing towards our troops in a threatening manner. And so further fire was directed near. No, where there are people desperate for food, we want them to get the food. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. We're trying to get the food to the individuals. Hamas,
were they armed?
IDF will be able to answer that question directly, but let me tell you, our intention is to get as much food to ordinary Gazans.
I mean, Mencer said that the IDF was scared of unarmed, hungry, desperate people, therefore shooting at them was warranted. Of course, Murthy was having none of it. This then led to Mencer claiming Murthy was advocating for Hamas.
The IDF operates under international law, not Channel 4 law, international law. And that's why it's very important. The details of this case are very important. Now, the IDF is aware of these reports and also of casualties, and they are reviewing the incident. But look, a couple of things are clear. We are not preventing the arrival of Gazans. The opposite. We want more humanitarian aid sites, and we want more Gazans to collect that food. We're encouraging it. Now, these warning shots were fired
David,
away from the aid distribution.
Twice now, desperate people who have been starved for weeks have been shot at while trying to collect aid. You are terrifying the population of Gaza even more. They're too scared now to go to collection points because they know they could be shot at by the IDF.
So that is precisely the Hamas rhetoric that they want you to publish.
It's the fact of what's happened. More than 50 people are dead.
No, that's not the facts, Krishnan. You have got the facts wrong because we've already shown you video of Hamas firing on their own people because this is the last hand. Yes, we have. We released it on Sunday evening.
That is a totally spurious video. It's a spurious video of a different incident
in a different place. Firing. No, the video of Hamas firing on their own people trying to get hold of aid is spurious, is it? I think it's
You have no
precisely the
evidence
point.
that that was Hamas or it was at the same incident.
Okay, that's slightly ridiculous. Sometimes, Christian, you actually advocate for Hamas, and I must say it's bizarre.
No, that's
because
offensive,
Hamas are a
David. And you really shouldn't say things
It is
like that.
offensive to
It's
Israel.
just attacking the media.
It is offensive to
and
Israel.
It's a talking point, and it just shows you're avoiding the question.
I mean, I love how he says that the IDF operates under international law, when international organizations and courts explicitly say they don't, and just Israel attacks them. I mean, that's a really, really wild thing to say. A journalist asking basic questions now means that Krishnan is a Hamas advocate. Now, I could say that's the last crazy thing in the interview, but it's not. Mensa proceeds to call out the UN for the supposed double standard because apparently they're anti-Semitic.
The UN around most of the world, maybe not in Israel. So are you rejecting an independent investigation?
Terrorist, every single Hamas terrorist which attacked us on October the 7th was a graduate of a United Nations education. Now, you cannot tell me that the UN is a respected organization. They have unfortunately perpetuated this conflict. They should be humanitarian.
Well, you may not respect
the UN,
but are you rejecting?
We have begged them to be humanitarian. It's not just the UN calling for this. But they wish to sustain Hamas's leadership. They wish to sustain Hamas's leadership, and we are not. Listen, when the British Army is accused of doing misdemeanors, there is no independent investigation. There is an internal investigation.
Two wrongs don't make a right.
That's what all democracies do. No, because it's double standards, Krishnan. That's what you're guilty of. Different rules apply to Israel. Is it because we're Jewish? Christian, is that why you think there are special rules which apply to this country, the only Jewish country in the entire world?
No, I'm saying there are calls
this country
all around
is
the
being
world
demonized.
for independent investigation.
This country is being
because you won't allow the press in, you won't allow international organisations in,
precisely,
and you are
that's
judging
not true.
yourselves.
International
That's why they have no credibility.
Sorry, this is wild. I mean, all of Mensa's interviews literally go like this. Now imagine, being a member of the Labour right, former head of Labour Friends of Israel, leaves the party to go and do propaganda for a genocidal state. Now, I really recommend you watch the full interview. It is really wild, but you have to watch it. Frank, I really got to get your thoughts on this. I mean, look, there is a lot to unpack there because that was 10 minutes of just pure lies from Mensa. So I want to get your reaction.
I wish I could say it was surprising, but I mean, we've seen this, 1,000 times before, and we've heard this rhetoric over and over and over again, and it's tiring now because it's just an attempt to continue casting doubt and fear in the minds of the public to justify the actions of the Israeli government, which we all know, are completely breaching international law, which are, taking food now away from innocent people, really stepping over the line of Channel 4 law, and this has to be stopped. It has to be called out, and it's excellent journalism from Krishnan, and we have to continue asking tough questions to everybody. But it's just quite sickening to see this division from Mensa here as well, that questioning Israeli government officials, questioning the actions that are being taken is anti-Semitic, that it is putting you on the side of Hamas, that it is making you somehow an advocate of terrorism. That is just not the rhetoric that's going to help us bring peace, that's help us bring people together to solve what is a humanitarian crisis, which is killing innocent people, children, every single day. This has to come to an end, and that begins with having sensible conversations about this.
Yeah, I mean, there's talk about weaponization. I mean, your deputy leader, Zach Plansky, he is himself Jewish, has said on the record multiple times, advocating for Palestinians, I've been called anti-Semitic, quotes, self-hating Jew. Really disgusting things. And actually, when I was watching earlier, Piers Morgan, you had the Israeli, I forget her name now, the Israeli lawyer who was saying that this blood libel to suggest that Israel's killing kids, which is just a fact. So, I mean, what do you make of that as well? Again, I bring it back to Zach Plansky. He's your deputy leader, and he's been attacked for this. The Greens have been attacked for this more broadly.
I've been attacked personally as well in the local elections that have just gone by. The Conservatives trying to get the Green Party to suspend me as a candidate, calling me anti-Semitic on purely spurious claims which the party rejected. And it's just what they're doing. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Zach has been, very clear on this. Has been a very, very strong advocate for peace, of people, of human rights, and for this to be now drawn on lines of faith, of ideology, of race is ridiculous. And I would question that Mensa's doing the same thing here. He's saying that anyone that dare criticise is therefore on the side of the other, is therefore attacking Jewish people, is therefore anti-Semitic, and therefore that's the same type of sectarian language that we hear from those that he claims to be fighting against.
Well, I mean, it's just pure projection. It's what you get from these people. I mean, I do want to ask you, what does it say about the Labour Party, though? I mean, this man was the former head of Labour Friends of Israel. Now he's doing a genocide apologia. He went from the Labour Party. He supported the right-wing faction in Labour. He attacked other factions on the left, those who support Palestinians, obviously Jeremy Corbyn. And now he's literally a spokesperson for the Israeli state. So surely this is a fundamental issue with the Labour Party.
There is a fundamental issue with the Labour Party and their inability, and we're going to talk about this, I'm sure, in a moment, about their inability to condemn what's happening and to remove the British state from being involved in this. And it's quite clear that the Israeli government is going around and trying to make sure that countries around the world give them their support. That is happening. They are trying to butter up individuals, countries, nations, leaders, so that Israel can continue doing what it's doing. And Mensa, being involved in party politics, is an expert at doing this. This is what they're continuing to do. And being on Channel 4 like this, having this interview is just another space for him to be able to get in front of the British public and try to cast doubt, to leave viewers wondering if, well, did Hamas do this? Did the Israeli government really do that? To create a world where there is no truth anymore. That is really what they're trying to get to a point where we just question everything and therefore we can't believe anything and we just allow it to happen and remove ourselves because it becomes too complicated. And that's what this war, this genocide, this crisis, which has been decades and decades long, has always been thrown into the category of being too complicated. And we have to challenge that. And again, Krishnan did a great job of doing that. I think really, really sensible, moderate in his language, very calm, and that's how we have to deal with people like Mensa.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly someone who's a big supporter of legacy and corporate media. That's why we started Turn Left. But I credit where credit's due. I thought Krishnan did a fantastic job. And actually, I do quite like watching these interviews because, Israeli spokespeople shoot themselves in the foot because you don't really need to bind them in rhetorical sort of ties, right? You can just simply ask basic questions and they kind of do the job for you. I mean, the things that they're saying. I mean, even David Mensa saying, look, this is not Channel 4 law, this is international law. I mean, he's already denigrating Channel 4. He's attacking Krishnan is a Hamas advocate. People are going to watch that and think, well, who's the crazy one here? And certainly not Krishnan. So definitely very much agree with what you said. But it's 8 o'clock, so we are going to move on. But before we move on to our next story, we have a lovely video to show you. For the last 45 years, there has been a massive transfer of wealth from the working and middle classes to the top 1%. Billions of pounds have been taken from the workers and handed to the economic elites. In 2008, the world came to a standstill. The market had failed. Capitalism was in crisis. Yet 16 years on, nothing has changed. The bankers weren't jailed, the banks were bailed out, ordinary people lost everything. It's 2025 and we are now reckoning with a Labour Party that seeks to implement a Tory agenda. We face rising right-wing forces, more division, more misinformation. Yet no one in mainstream media wants to talk about the real issue, the economic elites who have increased their wealth while the rest of us have become poorer. This isn't just a crisis of inequality, it's a crisis of democracy. The rich aren't just getting richer, they're owning everything. We are facing a global oligarchy and nothing is being done. Why? Because of our media. The same oligarchs who hoard wealth also control our press and now our social networks. This is why independent media isn't just important, it's necessary. It's why we're calling on your support. Turn Left is an organisation run by 5 volunteers working around our full-time jobs. Your contributions have already made a huge difference, whether by covering rallies, producing vox pops and interviews, or upgrading our equipment. That's all possible because of you. But we can do so much more. We can be far more ambitious. So head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support, become a monthly supporter, or give a one-off donation. If you want to fight back against the billionaire class, then help us build a media for people, a media for planet, a media for socialism. Smash the oligarchs. Join Turn Left. I mean, I don't know who that guy is, but he seems to be making sense. So if you want to smash the oligarchs, then you need a media for socialism. So that's turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There you can give us a monthly or one-off donation. Of course, you can become a YouTube member for just 99p. But let's move on to our final story of the evening. Palestinian activists have been charged for holding an MP to account. Yes, they've really done it. 2 women have been convicted of harassing a government minister. Cardiff Magistrates Court heard that Justice Minister and Pontypridd MP Alex Davies-Jones was terrified after being confronted by 2 pro-Palestinian activists while campaigning. Senior District Judge Paul Goldspring found Aisha B. Hitz, 31, and Heba Ahmed guilty of harassment, following a trial. He gave them a conditional discharge and fine. Now, of course, you might be thinking, well, this is harassment, this is bad. But we're going to go through the details and you can judge on whether a charge was warranted. Davies-Jones said she felt scared and intimidated after being approached by B. Hitz, 31, and Ahmed, 26. The court heard B. Hitz and Ahmed had leaflets describing the MP as a full-blown supporter of this genocide in Gaza. Davies-Jones was approached while leafleting in the defendant's hometown on the 26th of June last year ahead of the general election. The MP said she was asked questions around the conflict in Israel and Palestine and my conduct as an MP, if I had taken part in votes, membership of organisations such as Labour Friends of Israel. They asked me about the ceasefire and why I had abstained. I clarified I hadn't abstained, I wasn't in the country, I was paired in that vote, she added. It was escalating in terms of passion and intensity. We walked off in the opposite direction. We felt scared and intimidated, and we wanted to leave the situation. They began to follow us. They were shouting and bellowing down the street at us. Why do you support genocide? Why are you murdering babies? Alex Davies-Jones, do you support genocide? Davies-Jones said the 2 defendants also handed out leaflets and put posters on the Labour office in Pontypridd that referred to politicians enabling genocide. She told the court their actions felt her feeling terrified, and a video of the confrontation was uploaded onto social media with a caption describing Davies-Jones as racist, was manipulated in a way that made it seem I had lied. Davies-Jones said as a result of the incident, she reduced campaigning sessions and had to be accompanied by close protection officers. Now, the MP told Cardiff Magistrates Court that the abuse was apparently relentless. Now, I think from the information we have, the harassment was 2 women shouting at her from afar for abstaining on a vote, and then they handed out leaflets. But we also have an account from the 2 women who were charged. Just 2 hours after posting the video, over a dozen police officers swarmed my door and windows with several male officers trying to climb in through open windows. I was not dressed when they knocked, and I asked them for a few minutes to get dressed, and they threatened to break the door down. When I let them in, it later turned out they did not have a warrant, I was not allowed to change and was manhandled excessively for resisting. The bail conditions I was put under forbade me from posting on social media about Alex Davies-Jones or the investigation, and enforced homelessness on my housemate, who was arrested alongside me and banned from associating with me in any capacity, as we were considered too dangerous to be together. My housemate, a trans person of colour, is now having to sofa surf until our bail conditions run out. South Wales police have also stepped up a campaign of harassment against me. Officers turned up to my home to deliver a letter after I said that I was experiencing PTSD from the raid, and followed me around Cardiff. I feel isolated and unsafe in my own home because I spoke up during election season about my MP's voting record. It is unfathomable to me that Alex Davis-Jones considers herself unsafe because of an Instagram video when she has inflicted real violence on myself and my housemates. Even now, I still have fingerprint-shaped bruises on my arms. I am deeply concerned about what this means for Arab women like me, and especially those who are pro-Palestine or pushing to hold MPs accountable for their policy decisions. So I think when you listen to their statement, you get a far equal balance of the situation. We all know too many stories of police violence and attacks, and it's another example of it there. Frank, I mean, this is, in my opinion, clearly a way of using the police to stop people holding MPs to account on the issue of genocide. We don't condone harassment, but I think if you look at the situation there and you also look at the response and the way the police treated those activists, it's wildly different.
It really is. It's, there is obviously a very, very fine line, and we do have to make sure that elected officials are protected. And I'm, as a local councillor, far different level of publicity, but I go around knocking people's doors, and you want to feel safe doing that. You want to be able to engage with the public in a way where you feel safe, and so absolutely that has to be a number one priority. That said, there is harassment, and then there is harassment, and I would say that in this case, if this is enough to constitute harassment, why is Elon Musk allowed to say what he said about Jess Phillips? Why is that not harassment of a member of parliament to post that someone is a rape genocide apologist on your social media platform? And so I think that there really is this argument which needs to be had, this discussion about what can and cannot be said and how can it be said. But what I will say to those that are out there wanting to hold their MP to account is that we need to make sure we're doing everything we can to replace these members of parliament. Is Alex Davis-Jones going to be, is going to change her mind because of this? I don't think so. I don't think that we're going to convince somebody that they should vote in a different way, that they should hold a different stance, they should have a different policy set. Is maybe it would even reinforce their views. So I would urge everyone to go out and support socialist candidates, left-wing candidates, green candidates, and make sure that we get better voices in Parliament. That's the only way to get around this. That's my initial take, really.
Yeah, I mean, but it does set a dangerous precedent. So even if one were to say this specific example, maybe they were too aggressive, but when you're an elected politician, right, someone who's connected to the state quite literally, when you're an MP, you literally have access to services, police services, like they have a fob and they come there, right? To then say we are now going to use the state to come down on activists, ordinary people, they're going to, break into their houses essentially, then this is really dangerous. I think this is, we saw a situation a while back in America, the same sort of thing happened. I can't remember if it's a senator or Congress person, but they said they were being threatened and essentially attacked. And then we saw the video footage. It was a lovely bunch of old ladies just peacefully protesting for Palestine. And I think this is where they're using the threats of security and violence as a way to stop accountability. Now, it doesn't happen. Of course it does. We've had 2 MPs killed. But who are the people that face the violence? It's not ordinary protesters standing against genocide. It's radical extremists, whether that be, sometimes Islamist extremists, or the growing threat of the far right. And no one's really talking about that.
No, absolutely. And intimidation, violence have no place in politics for me at all. We need to make sure that we are bringing people together, we're uniting around our shared values, our humanity, and it's a very, very difficult thing to understand why these girls who have been out campaigning, have been putting up posters, delivering leaflets, are having their doors knocked down. I don't understand how you can justify that as the police. I'll be interested to see what their response is to that and how they do justify that. I've read as well that the pair of activists say that they are going to challenge this as well. And so it will be interesting to see how it plays out. But for me, it just seems far too rash a response, and that this isn't how we bring people together. And like you say, it's lumping people in with the crowd. And we've just watched, David Mensa there, lumping anyone that dare criticise the Israeli state, anyone that dare call themselves pro-Palestinian, with Hamas. Anyone that would dare speak out as being with Hamas, and the same is happening on the reverse. We just have to get to this point where people are allowed to speak up, allowed to protest, allowed to hold their member of parliament to account without being vilified as some sort of threat to the state, as some sort of terrorist.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I think invoking David Mensa and people like him who do lump people into certain categories. We've seen it with the pro-Palestine protests. I mean, you've got corporate media journalists saying, well, these are just Hamas supporters. It's absolutely wild. You've got hundreds of thousands of people protesting against a genocide. Clearly, that's not the case. And that is a danger. So I very much agree. But I think we're going to leave it there. And we're going to bring in our producer and go to your comments. And now you've got a lot of comments and they're really excited to see what you have said. Cog is joining us now. Cog, how are you doing?
Hi, yeah, I am not doing too badly. If you could turn your gain up just a little bit, Curtis, that would be wonderful.
Yes, how's that?
Yep. Yeah, just to even the odds just a little bit because I had a comment about that. So just run through some donations and monetary things first. So we were gifted 5 Turn Left memberships by the person with my favourite name of all our commentators, Baron von Coxlab.
Good to see you again.
Thank you. Good to see you again. A kind supporter and somebody with quite a cool name, Border Prince, says, great job on Navarra, Curtis, and donating.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yes. Curtis did really, really well. I was really happy with Curtis on Navarra. Really good stuff.
Cog is my handler, you know.
Yeah, yes. desperate handler, barely holding on. Yes. So first of all, we have with regards to the first story about Rachel Reeves. Jamie M said, "Kid Starver just rolls off the tongue so well, and it really suits him." And we have that's not really a question, so I won't ask you guys to comment on that one. This Labour Party's attitude is it's our turn now while having a little tantrum. I do want to kind of ask you about that. How do you think the Labour Party views itself as being different from the coalition government and the Conservative parties that then followed that? How do both of you think that they perceive themselves?
I mean, I do wonder if they think they're doing a similar job where they have to, or playing a similar game, a narrative which they think the public wants to hear. We all remember, the little note that was left saying there's no money left, and then David Cameron and Nick Clegg saying, we've got to come along and be sensible, and this is what we've got to do. And George Osborne proudly announcing austerity as if it was going to save the day. And I do feel like the Labour Party, like Keir Starmer, have just followed this exact same narrative of saying, the public wants stability, and therefore that means cutting public services, not doing anything that can be seen as too radical. And I think that perhaps they did think that they were going to come in and do that steady the ship thing and have huge applause for doing it. I'm pleased to see it's backfired and that the public won't stand for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just to pretty much jump on what you said. I mean, their campaigning was jumping off of the Tories going into collapse, and it was very much like, we are the adults in the room, we are the steady ship. That is not what you want to do when you want people to be enthusiastic about you. And I often say this, and I think it's true, that the Labour Party didn't win the election, the Conservatives lost the election, because obviously the amount of votes Labour got for that size of the majority is wild, and that's obviously our broken first past the post system. But they desperately want to be the managers of the country. They don't really want to change anything. So that's why you don't see a big ideological difference between Labour and the Tories. They'll make better decisions here and there than the Conservatives. They will. But broadly speaking, they sing from the same hymn sheet, which is basically neoliberal economics and supporting the corporations. I mean, taking money from the big corporations and supporting them. That's just who they are. I mean, it's why we'll call them the capital B party, is why they are essentially an extension of the Conservative Party.
Aren't they just pretending that they're Doge? Isn't that what their whole thing is, right? They're
kind of, yeah. They're really jumping on that Doge, aren't they? They're doing that, and they're jumping on DER. You've got the blue Labour faction in the party saying, "Oh, we should really be doing DEI or clamping down DEI." They have no principles. They have no backbone. They go with whatever Farage and GB News says, and it's just absolutely pathetic.
Yeah, the sort of the mantra of sensible briefcase politics is, you look at where the public are and then try and follow to where the public happen to have already moved. But of course, then you're never setting the narrative. You're never going, here is what we think and here is why you should think it, which is the thing that Nigel Farage does all the time, right? They make, the right wing makes us think. And that was one of the good things actually about Jeremy Corbyn and what he did with the, not in general, I mean more recently, what he did with the call
investigation,
for
wasn't it?
Inquiry, because as you were saying on Navarra, although it wasn't going to pass, that wasn't really the point. The point was to create a record, like you were saying, but also just to create some noise, and then let people, let people's opinion move over because you've started drawing attention to an issue. The right wing do this all the time. It would be good to see the left wing doing this more often. It would be a good thing to see. So
isn't that fundamentally leadership? And that's what we lack so often, I think, on the left, is the ability to come out and to really say what we think and to lead. I think sometimes we're a little bit too afraid and we respond to things and we react to things rather than really driving the public opinion. And that's why Nigel Farage, for all his ills, what he's done, really, where his success comes from, is he's leading the far right. He has managed to unite all of those fragmented groups, at least momentarily, for behind reform, behind his vision. And somehow, for some reason, I don't claim to fully understand it, those of us on the left seem unable to do that.
It's a really good point, and it is leadership at its core. I think the right have an easier time with leadership because, and they tend to fall in line more because on their politics is so much less based on substance. Their politics is based on aesthetic, and aesthetics particularly centered around like hierarchy and power. Of course, they don't frame it that way, but essentially right-wing politics is about reinforcing hierarchies. So it is sort of, I think, a bit easier for them to slide into that role of leadership. But just having people who put forward opinions and make a noise is actually really a very left-wing tradition. So it would be good to see people doing that. I don't know if, Curtis, have you got anything you want to say on that?
No, I mean, I think you've put it perfectly. So I'm not going to add to that because, I mean, Cog, great analysis. Great analysis as well.
It does happen every now and again. So Jim Speak said he meaning David Mensa, right, moved to Israel, blaming Corbyn. I just thought this was very funny. I just wanted to highlight this because I think it's very funny. Still looking back on that.
He did, didn't he? Yeah, he said, I've moved to Israel because of Jeremy Corbyn's anti-Semitism, apparently. But I mean, this is Mensa is a complete tool as well, though. I mean, obviously you've got idiot spokespeople for Israel, but he's definitely number one. It's hard not to laugh. I mean, look, it's an incredibly serious situation, of course, but when he's on the screen, he's so pathetic. It is quite a spectacle.
Yeah. So does that mean that he didn't initially want to live in Israel?
Well, maybe. Yeah, good point. It was that damn Jeremy Croblins. Drumbly Crumblins.
Jumbly crumbly jam, man, as they say. So Edward says, the occupation of Gaza, the West Bank and the Golan Heights are against international law, Mensa. You are taking part in genocide. I think we all agree with that one, so I won't ask you to comment on that one.
Great.
Yeah, he agrees, and he needs to remember that.
Yes, worth saying that there isn't agreement among the international community do not agree with Israel's opinion on this, and international law does not agree with Israel's opinion on this. And Jacqueline quite rightly points out, and I think this is another interesting angle, the judges at the ICC or ICJ, and even the people working for them, are apparently being targeted, like their Yahoo accounts being stopped or their bank accounts being frozen. Do you guys want to comment on this? Because I think this is the level of suppression for the level of public support they're getting is wild. It's wildly out of step. They've been really unsuccessful despite putting loads of pressure on international institutions like the ICC and ICJ.
Well, I think that there is it's been documented that ICC prosecutors have been targeted. One from Karim Khan, although we have to be careful with Karim Khan, they were allegations of like harassment. It's not to downplay it, but it came at a very timely. It came at a time when he was trying to prosecute Israel. But also, I can't remember her name, unfortunately, but the person before Krim Khan, was the ICC prosecutor. She was also severely intimidated. So yeah, this happens, and it's incredibly scary. Look, Israel has a very good intelligence network. They spy on people a lot, so it's not surprising.
Yeah, it's I mean, whether this is true or not, I don't know. But this is the kind of thing that governments around the world do, particularly when they're fearful of their position and their PR on the world stage. And yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. What does surprise me is that people still have Yahoo accounts.
Yeah, true. Who has that? Who has Yahoo
True.
accounts? That's criminal, if you ask me.
True. No. Yes. So there was an interesting question. I just want to put this forward in theory. I don't think I would agree with this personally, but it is interesting. Andrew Wilton asked, would it be wrong to revoke David Mentz's, citizenship? If Shamima can't have hers for serving another state, why can he? I just want to insert here that I am against both losing their citizenship because I think that's a really dangerous precedent, but I'll let you guys take this one.
Yeah, I fundamentally agree with everything you've just said there, Cog. I don't think it's right to take away somebody's citizenship. I don't think it's right to make somebody stateless, whether that be through a Home Office taking it away from you, or from making an area of land uninhabitable through your actions. Forcing somebody out of state, I don't think is the right thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, actually. I mean, look, if you're gonna, I think we should expel the ambassador. We do that all the time, and obviously she's been thoroughly supporting Israel. She's been terrible. Expel the ambassador. There could be an argument made. I don't know whether I agree or not, but there could be an argument made saying, well, this person is propagating genocide. IDF soldier come to the UK. I mean, I personally would say they should be arrested immediately. If they were to say, look, if you served in the IDF, maybe your citizenship should be revoked. That's the point. I do think, look, if you were to say who's more deserving of removing their citizenship, Shamima Begum or anyone from the IDF or Israeli spokespeople, I think it's anyone from the IDF or Israeli spokespeople, since they are literally fronting a genocide. But I think broadly, when it comes down to it, I think you're probably right, Cog and Frank. It could set a very dangerous precedent. I'd rather give too much freedoms to people we don't like than not enough. If you see what I'm trying to say, it's probably not the right thing to do. But I think Andrew is an interesting thing to say. And I think what the heart of your comment there was more of the double standard. Whatever you agree with that or not, in terms of whether they should revoke the citizenship, the double standard is very, very clear. I mean, you have right-wing populist politicians saying Shamima Begum should never come back, but they would never say the same about the IDF or Israeli spokespeople.
No, absolutely. And somebody else has just commented here. I can see that Shamima saying that she's our responsibility. We need to understand why she left so it doesn't happen again. And I think that's absolutely right. There is this, why is this happening, and how do we stop it from happening again? And that's the role I think we have to take.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. We know why David Benson left, because Jeremy Corbyn, he said it himself. So we don't need to work out why he left. But yeah, no, I think a good little add-on there in terms of Shamima, why did this happen? I know people on the right will bleat at you saying, oh, do you love terrorists? It's no, of course not. But that's them.
Yeah, I take the same attitude towards anyone that's actually committed a crime that's in our prisons. We have to make sure that we're giving people a second chance and opportunity to learn from mistakes. Nobody's perfect. Nobody gets everything right. Even the most extreme of crimes that are committed, we have to make sure we work towards getting that out of our society, and that starts with understanding each other, listening to each other, compassion.
Well, you look at some of the prisons across Northern Europe. They're incredibly liberal, but they work. I mean, the rate of recidivism is really low. And you look at US prisons, and they're horrible inside, and they keep committing the same crime. So, I know that's an entire different topic, but it's a really interesting conversation.
Yes, I can't remember who said it, but we are addicted in this country to punishments that really don't work.
Yes, absolutely.
We
it's
love
a fetish we have, isn't it?
Yeah, we love the idea of harsh punishment in this country, and it doesn't work. Whereas you've got Scandinavian countries that are literally letting out their prison rooms to their prison rooms, their prison spaces to to the local schools because they don't have enough prisoners to fill them because they're
And we have the
so
opposite
good at
issue.
rehabilitation.
We don't have enough prison spaces,
Yes.
you know. But
Yes.
they want to go the Pascal Savage route and turn the UK into a giant prison and build more prisons, build more. If you get the reference, I love it. If you don't get the reference, then I'm disappointed.
Hey, Johnny
Well,
English.
the reference
right.
I want to give you is a Springfield Dome as well over the top of us, right? That's how it feels.
Right.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
Keir Starmer, if Morgan McSweeney, if that ever gets into his head, mark my word, Keir Starmer will be doing that right now. It's called investment. We're creating lots of jobs.
Oh yeah, no. I think they'll do it. They'll sort of like come up with something like that, but they'll do it individually. So it's just over one person's house, and then they'll have a choice, and they can either like put it over Nigel Farage's house or Jeremy Corbyn's, and they'll be picking Jeremy Corbyn every single time. It'll just be a glass dome encasing his house. So Jim Speak says. Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left. Which, if you don't get the reference, is our outro. So that was quite good. And also said, what in the ice? And I think it is a really good point that we are importing authoritarianism across from America and a disrespect for due process and also a disrespect for habeas corpus. Is it coming over from America so much, or is this an authoritarianism that you've kind of seen coming for a little while in this country that doesn't necessarily have its roots in the more recent ongoings with ICE in America?
Maybe it's always existed, but there's more of an excuse to do it. Maybe it's just with the Overton window has just shifted so much, and with international media, with access to information all the time now, and being able to really have a live feed into what's happening in the US, I think it is changing and shaping public opinion in the UK. It's bringing me back to the conversation we've just had a little bit about revoking citizenship. It's this idea of, I don't know if an authority can ever claim to get any decision 100% right, and we've just questioned today the decision that the courts have made about the two pro-Palestinian activists. And whether that was right or wrong. And so if you're making a decision to expel someone from a country, take away their citizenship, or even in like they do in the US, to take somebody's life, that really is quite dramatic. And so should we be taking this approach where we, just treating people well with dignity and respect and trying to understand why people do the things that they do? I think things are much more complicated than we'd like to think they are. And maybe that's where I come down on it, is that are we becoming more authoritarian? Probably yes. But are we just taking a simpler view of the world, of a good versus evil, a yes or a no? And is that actually being really destructive to our politics?
Yeah, I think that's broadly right. I think it's definitely getting worse. That's true. The UK is definitely taking tips from the US. They're never it's not going to be as extreme under Keir Starmer as it is in Donald Trump. Okay, definitely not. What I will say though is, for a lot of us, when we see it on the media, we're like, oh my God, it's getting so bad. It's getting far worse than it was before. Speak to a person of color there and they'll say, this is normal for us. So I think it's very interesting that, sometimes when, even me, I'm brown, but I'm quite light skinned. I've never really had trouble with the police before. I'm born and raised in Bristol as well, so maybe it's different if it's London. But I can say, I've been quite fortunate in that aspect. So if I look at the media and read articles about, it's getting infinitely worse. And again, I do think it's getting worse. But what we're forgetting is, there are many people of colour, many people from marginalised communities who are like, this is what we see in our community every single day. Are you only just seeing it now? And I think that's especially true in America, with the black community in America.
Yeah.
Very, very well said.
Yeah, very good answers from both of you on that one. I did have one final one that I don't know. You might have already answered this, to be fair, with that last response, but I think it's worth putting it to you anyway. Edward Saxby said it's a racist response by the cops. Let's face it. What role do you think racism plays in the way that this authoritarianism is taking shape, shall we say?
Yeah, unfortunately, it exists, and we know it exists. That it's not just unfortunately not just in policing, but it's in all of our institutions, and it's there, and it needs to be absolutely weaned out. And we have to do everything we can to make sure that people get justice, fair treatment, equal treatment. And is it? I mean, it is racism, but also what are the other points of discrimination here? And is it actually against anyone that dares speak out against the status quo? And how much does challenging authority have to do with it? I wonder why. I don't wonder why. I've answered the question myself in my head there, that it's pro-Palestinian activists that are being treated in this way. And like I've just said, like I said in my response earlier, Elon Musk was allowed to say what he said about Jess Phillips. There's also a divide between the rich and the poor, with the working classes as well.
Yeah, big class divide. Yeah.
Absolutely, and we have to make sure that we have a fairer system. What that looks like is very, very complicated, I think, to spell out. But we have institutional racism that, it is very much there. It's alive. I mean, just look at the conviction rates from juries on whether a defendant is black or white. I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous.
I know you said this was the last one, but I did want to bring up this one because this is really interesting.
Yeah.
Because this is my response to saying the UK under Keir Starmer won't get as bad as Trump. I still think that's the case, but Vicky says, won't it be? Trump isn't pre-arresting climate protesters for Zoom calls. Curtis Starmer isn't calling for the changes in the conservative... What's that? In the con protest laws. Well, I mean, people being black-bagged on the street in the US. You've got American citizens being detained. People have disappeared. So, I mean, I don't know if there's been a specific case of someone getting arrested for a Zoom call, but I would say, or even charged for it, that is really, really bad. But I still wouldn't compare it to people being black-bagged. Having said that, though, it is absolutely disgusting that climate change protesters are getting arrested, not protesting, but just planning on having a call. And this shows, and I've always believed this ever since Keir Starmer ran for Labour leadership, he is an authoritarian at heart. I just don't think he's quite as bad as Trump. I think Trump is a fascist. I wouldn't consider Keir Starmer a fascist, but he's an authoritarian, and he would absolutely allow this sort of thing to happen, which is absolutely wild.
Go on,
Frank. I was just going to say, but do you think that, although it might not happen under Starmer, the problem with Starmer isn't really that he pushes the boat further, but rather that he keeps it to the right wing. He enables it, and then a Farage or somebody else comes in, and in their premiership, we could see something similar to people being black-bagged and sent to El Salvador or Rwanda or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that Keir Starmer and the Labour Party and Liberals more broadly facilitate that. And I would say if you want to sort of put blame on Keir Starmer for that, I would agree with that. I'm saying, I don't think he would actively push as extreme stuff as Trump, because he's not as extremely right-wing as Trump. But yeah, I agree with you, Cog, that yes, he's probably helping to facilitate that kind of political environment where reform can get in. I could definitely see these sorts of things happening under reform.
I would. My challenge to Keir Starmer would be why he would, actively go out of his way to please and to meet someone like Donald Trump that has been charged with harassment, and then in this country, we are pro-Palestinian activists are being charged with harassing members of parliament, and that's deemed unacceptable. But why would you go and meet a world leader who has been charged with such, and also a world leader who's been very open and warm with Benjamin Netanyahu as well, right? So it's about who has power, who has influence, and who's able to get a free pass and who isn't. And I just these double standards have to stop. You want to be authoritarian in your home country, fine, but at least treat others in the same way. Harassment is harassment, and Donald Trump has been charged with that.
Absolutely.
There's a deep irony to that, isn't there? Whenever they talk about the law and enforcing the law, particularly, and protecting American women or protecting British women from scary, nasty immigrants, there's always a certain sort of sour taste that comes with that one, isn't there?
It really is. And I think it's really important we don't forget that.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, cool. I think we'll call that the last comment, and I'll hand back to Curtis for our outro.
Thank you so much, Cog, for coming in. Really appreciate those comments, by the way. But yes, that is all we have time for. Thank you to all of our viewers who tuned in. And of course, thank you so much for Frank Addington-Stringer for joining me tonight. It's a real pleasure. But remember also, viewers, to like this stream. And if you're not a subscriber, then please hit that button. If you want us to grow, then you can head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There is a link to our Patreon where you can support us monthly, or follow the other link to give us a one-time contribution. And remember, we are just volunteers. There's 5 of us. We're trying to do the best we can around our full-time jobs, but your donations have already been fantastic. If you haven't seen it already, and there's more interviews coming out, we went to the Media Democracy Festival on the weekend just gone in London. We spoke to really interesting people, Sangeeta Maiska, Aaron Bastani, Zach Palansky, Daniel Hind, loads of people. It was really good. We did that because you helped us. We were able to get cameras, get trains, a place to stay. All these little donations really, really help. But if you can't afford it, then don't give money. If you can't, just give us a like, just give us a comment, share this, and tell people about us. But thank you again. I'm Curtis Daly, and I will see you next time.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.